Poki'i, and I'm a licensed social worker and a member of our hub team. And it also is a great pleasure to recognize that this CME activity is jointly provided by the Queen's Medical Center along with the University of Hawaii Jabsum Department of Geriatric Medicine. Joining me this afternoon is our interdisciplinary Geri Echo hub team. And we have with us Dr. Lucas Morgan, our psychologist. Everybody wave. Then there's Dr. Reese Ueno. We have as our pharmacist. We have Dr. Rita Bell Fernandez. And joining us for physical therapy is Susie Neufeld. She'll be with us shortly. And then lastly, but not least, we have our nurse practitioner, Dr. Courtney Nunukawa. A little housekeeping. Again, with regards to evaluation forms, if you want to receive CME credits, the evaluations need to be completed. Great news, you can now check on your CME credits online. And this is managed by the Queen's Medical Center's Continuing Medical Education Office.
Oh, sorry, what did you ask?
Can you hear me? Everybody hearing me? Okay, good. So you can go to the website that's listed there in the PowerPoint slide, and we'll also provide that in the chat at the end of our presenter. But the most important thing for you to know is you don't have to wait for annual transcripts. You were having to wait to receive those from the Queen's Medical Center. You can actually track and monitor on the website once you create your own account. You can see and you know what the CMEs are that you've accumulated, okay? Your comments are very, again, important to us, and it's useful for the planning committee for our future Geri Echo programs. About Echo, we want to emphasize that this Echo webinar serves as a forum for mutual teaching and learning from experts and from each of us here on the front lines. As the ECHO motto goes, all teach, all learn. And in the spirit of aloha, we want to encourage you to turn on your cameras to help us build this community of learning. And please feel free to eat lunch during the session because good nutrition is a key component to a healthy lifestyle. Again, confidentiality and safety, a reminder. Keep in mind that if you are providing case examples, that you keep information confidential and not share the person's birthday and other personal information. As far as the format goes, we're going to have a short lecture from our expert presenter, and then it will follow with comments from the Echo Hub team. And then you, the participants, we would like to hear your questions. We certainly want to have your case examples shared with us for discussion on this topic. And last, we ask that you continue to keep everything HIPAA compliant. So this afternoon, it is a really great pleasure for me to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Kealohaku Ualohaku U Poki'i Balaz, who I always call Poki'i. But Dr. Balaz is a public health executive leader who has dedicated her career to advancing health initiatives through innovative strategies in healthcare policies and systems change. Her emphasis is on aging and advocacy for underserved and the aging population. As a native Hawaiian geriatric nurse practitioner, Poki'i is also a caregiver to her father, who is living with Alzheimer's disease, and her nephew is autistic. She knows firsthand how a cultural approach to caregiving truly improves health outcomes for aging individuals, as well as how culture values motivate the surrounding community to participate in this continuum of care. Her extensive clinical background and focus on resource optimization prepared Dr. Balaz to address senior care issues through public policies. Not only is she a board member with the Alzheimer's Association, but she's also the recipient of the Alzheimer's Association Advocate of the Year Award. She also has accepted invitations by both our congressman and governor to contribute to the Native Hawaiian Advisory Council and serves on the PABEA, which is the Policy Advisory Board for Elder Affairs. And she's currently working in the nation's capital, which she'll share with you about. When she has in her spare time, she's very involved with the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs and is the first person from Hawaii to be selected to the Obama Foundation Scholars Program. She's a double board certified family nurse practitioner with a doctorate in nursing practice from the University of Hawaii in Hilo. She's also has a master's of business administration from the Scheidler College of Business at the University of Hawaii. So welcome, Dr. Balaz.
Thank you, Sarah, for that wonderful introduction. It's really nice to see many of you. I haven't seen some of you in quite a while, but I do encourage you to turn on your cameras. This presentation will be a little bit different, I think, than the normal run-throughs of the ECHO. But as Sarah mentioned, just to follow up on that, please, yes, I am not in Hawaii, so if there's any connection issues, please let the team know. I am currently in DC working with the U.S. Senate Committee on Finance. So it's been a great pleasure for my program too. I'm the first leader from Hawaii, as well as the first Native Hawaiian to have the opportunity to participate in this fellowship. And as many of you know, there's so much going on right now. And the committee that I work for, the jurisdiction oversees taxes, tariffs, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, TANF, CHIP. So a lot of what we're all going through is happening right at the center. But it's a privilege to be there and to do what I can to keep advancing all of our efforts. So with that, I just want to say thank you again for having me here, and I appreciate being here and having this time. We're going to do wandering. Now, this presentation happened in October, so if many of you joined in October, it will be following the same presentation from the Alzheimer's Association. It's in partnership with the Alzheimer's Association, so I will go through their slides first. This one is more community-based, probably for caregivers, but we're going to switch it up at the end after we go through their slides to use as a foundation. And then really, it's going to be a really thoughtful discussion from us. We're all providers in different areas. We've all dealt with wandering in different areas. Many of us, I'm sure, has happened when we're actually in the office trying to see patients or residents or whatever venue that you are at. And so we are all experts here. And I think one of the greatest things is that we learn from each other and we share the experiences we have and how we were able to mitigate those. And I'll be happy to share some of the ones that I've been able to, or I've had to go through. So just want everybody to get ready. I know you're eating lunch, so if you are just wanting to turn on your mics, but it's going to be an interactive session, not just, I guess, listening to me rattle off on some slides. So let's get started. So from the association, Gina is also here too. She works for the Alzheimer's Association here in Hawaii. And so Gina, please jump in at any time if you would like, especially when we get to the parts about resources for the Alzheimer's Association. You can let everybody know how they can reach you with the support that the association can offer. Okay, so quickly, as we get into this, what is wandering? So as many of us have experienced with our patients or maybe family members or community members, it is getting lost or becoming confused about one's location or not just their location, but in many other forms of confusion. Wandering can happen, but 6 out of 10 people with Alzheimer's wander at least once. It's very stressful, as we all know, both for the patient, the caregivers, the family, the community, the care team, and it definitely can be dangerous. Next slide, please. So who is at risk to wander? Everybody with dementia is definitely at risk. Sometimes they're not recognizing right familiar places like their own home, family members, their own car, people that around them. So it also might cause them to try to get home. I think many of us have had experiences with that where they have said, like, I want to go home. I want to go home. Maybe they are in their new home. Maybe they are in a nursing home. And so one of the discussions that we can talk about and learn from each other is how do we mitigate that? What have all of you done that has worked or maybe has not been successful, which is very important to know those things too. And how do we try to maybe reorient them or distract and when they're trying to get home, even if they've been retired or they've been living in this new area, maybe for years already. And we can talk about the effects that it can have on them also, especially if they move to a new place while they're going through this. So it can definitely be dangerous. And of course, the first 24 hours, if somebody goes missing, as we all know, is extremely important for us to find them at that time. And we've had many instances already in Hawaii and across the nation. Next slide, please. So some of the things that we've heard from people when they say they might be wandering, right, is I need to go to work, um, or I want to go home, or they're asking for people, or they want to go somewhere. They can get restless and pace around. Sometimes they get agitated. Um, they'll return from a usual walk or drive later than expected because maybe they got a little confused. They might have gotten lost. They'll forget how to go to familiar places. Tries to get home while being in their home. They can appear lost in familiar locations and they get very anxious in crowds. And I remember when my father, for one of his, for his job at one point was to kind of know where to drive. This is before we had maps and Google Maps. And he used to have the map books. And I remember when I was younger, I would call him all the time to be like, Dad, how do you get here? How do you get there? And he would know exactly where to go, what side streets to take, and all the back roads. And it was wonderful. And my mother and I still remember the day that he couldn't drive home anymore. We went out, he drove fine to the destination. And then when it was time to drive home, he couldn't figure out how to come home. And it was, one of the first realizations that we were going through this. And then I lost my person to call all the time to get all the back roads so that I could get to places faster. But it was still, I still remember that moment very vividly. And so it was, definitely a moment in our family. Okay, next slide, please. And what should we do if someone tries to wander away? So we would really, really try to encourage people not to get to confront them or yell. But emotions are always running high. And so sometimes it happens with caregivers or with anyone. And I think another part of this is letting caregivers know that sometimes when we have those moments, it is okay. And that, we are going to move on to the next one. But there are moments when they're in danger that it may be needed. But to really ask people who are in this position to pause and assess, and really not just providers, professional or family and caregivers, but really educating the community, because people with dementia are out in the community. They're at the bank, they're at the stores, they're everywhere. And so how do we then bring awareness so that when people encounter this, that many people hopefully would know how to kind of assess the situation. So really pause and assess, really try to think about what they're trying to do, kind of get at the root of the problem, and try to really look at it from their end. Do they want to go home, go to work? What are they saying? If they are still able to verbally explain to you, like, what is at the root of it? Is it really an emotional need that we're trying to deal with? And so then we can strategize, right? Can you help me with this first? I was hoping we could have a cup of coffee before you go, redirect to another activity if possible, and use music. And of course, these are all going to depend on what environment we're in. Is this happening when we're outside? Are we in a building? Are we at a doctor's appointment, at a physical therapist appointment? Are we just visiting family? Is grandpa, at the school watching his grandson? I had one family wanted to take their person to an event that was happening on Oahu, in a big event. And so this person is also known to wander, especially when there's loud noises and they're getting confused. It's not a familiar environment. And so we really had to talk through strategies, because this person was now going to be around a lot of strangers in an environment that was going to have loud noise. But the caregiver really felt that this would be good for her person and really wanted the experience. And so, besides talking about like headphones, we also talked about sitting in the back so that they could exit if needed, that she would, hold his hand or put her hand on him. We also brought things for the person to do fidget toys if you want, or other things to kind of help them feel more secure while they were going to the event. It seems that it worked out pretty well for them, so that was nice. So we can, always try to think out of the box and strategize in other ways so that they can still have the experiences that they need. Okay, next slide, please. So we're all detectives, no matter if we're a family caregiver, professional caregiver, and we always are trying to figure out the why to everything, not just wandering, especially wandering, but to anything that is happening with someone with dementia is what is the why, right? A lot of us have gone through root cause analysis and asking why 5 times. And if we can really try to hone in on the why something is happening, then it really helps us to strategize that much better. It's not always easy, and that's why we work as a team, so we can all rely on each other. But some of the things is to look for something that's familiar, right? Poor lighting can contribute. If they're bored, they will tend most likely to get up and start to wander. If they can't remember where they're going, if they're having a hard time remembering, if they might be looking for their home or a person. My father, if he could not see my mother in his vision field, then he was going to get up and find her. And that was it. There was no stopping him. He needed to see my mother, and once he saw her, then he would sit down. But so it made it very difficult for mom to like even go take a shower sometimes. But we definitely had a good time too. And sometimes we'd even play like hide and seek, and dad had a good time. We had a good time together as a family. And so it's just some of those memories that stick with us. Um, but they also might be looking for someone from their past, and he'd want to look for his sister or his mom. Or they might be trying to keep an old routine, like going to work. I had a patient one time who the staff was having a difficult time with him at night. And but when we looked into his past, he worked at night. So we developed another routine, and he would get up and he would wander, and that was what was very frustrating for the staff. So we developed a routine to kind of mimic what he did when he used to work, and it worked out pretty well. He would go through that, and then he would go to bed after. So it was really nice to kind of find out about him, learn more about him. What did he do? What was his job? Where was it? What kind of things did he do? And then be able to try and mimic that. Um, and so otherwise, is there a specific time when this is happening? And of course, not to forget the how. So next slide, please. So changing the why and the how. So if the person is in an environment that they're not familiar with, and again, this depends too on their stage, how advanced dementia is, but we would try to not leave them unsupervised because anxiety will promote wandering. If they're still able to read and understand the signs, we can definitely label where the bathroom is, putting up signs with arrows, pointing them in direction of where to go, bringing familiar objects to a new place or photos, having a visible clock, putting a schedule near the clock. Joys Ariza too, we used to use for some of residents, my patients and my dad, we used to use the boards. So we'd write messages to him, and we'd have one. We knew he was going to go to the bathroom. We knew he was going to go to the kitchen. So we would leave the boards for him to read. And that worked out really well. We would use signs and even bring signs with me so that when we were in unfamiliar places, I had ready to go signs. So I would just like tack them up if we were in unfamiliar places, so he would at least know in what direction things were. And that was very helpful for him, and also for some of the residents and other patients we've worked with. We can also look at scheduling activities to provide structure. What kind of things are they interested in? What kind of things did they like before? Sometimes it remains the same, sometimes it changes. And so we can try different things, and including regular physical activities. And for some, a toileting schedule is necessary, or it can be helpful. Next slide, please. We talk about safety a lot also in wandering, and many of us have paid attention to the news and the scares that we've had in Hawaii as well as across the nation. So we definitely want to have a safety plan in advance. And so wanting to know where your first responders are, who is there to help, getting to know your neighbors, kind of your community that's around, having available on you a photo description, what they like to be called, maybe common areas that they like to go. If they are still driving, details about the car or location, devices, and medical issues and medications. And you may want to make a document with this information that can be emailed or printed so you can distribute it if needed. And please keep all your phone numbers for emergency responders available, police, the fire department, and nearest emergency rooms. Next slide, please. Home adaptions, these are fun too. So these are things some people use that you can try if needed. Hidden locks, it can be used in a home, in a workplace. This can be very versatile, but night lights to help a person recognize their surroundings. So sometimes leaving the light on in the bathroom so that they can easily access it, know where it's at. Changing the color in the toilet so that they can find where it is. Sometimes camouflaging doors. And so I think many of us have seen this where like the door looks like a bookshelf so that they don't try to open it or walk out. We can have alarms put on the doors. You can put a dark mat in front of the doors. A lot of times the dark mat prevents them from stepping over to try to open the door. Label things in the house or put fencing around the yard. And then next slide, please. There's also a lot of technology tools, Apple AirTags, work ID bracelets, Alexa together. We were just talking with one of my colleagues today. One of the researchers was looking at how Alexa has helped with dementia and in targeting language changes, subtle language changes that might not be apparent to many of us, but with AI, we can use that to really go through and see the changes, the pattern, very slight changes. And so definitely looking to that presentation soon. But Alexa does have a monthly subscription. You can fall detection, you can put up cameras, monitors, various things. There's like stabilizing canes now to help them walk, which I guess wandering, but still we want them to be safe when they're getting up and walking. And so there's just a lot of AI tools that we can use. Next slide, please. And driving, I think for it, many of us have probably had to have the conversation or dealt with issues where somebody wants to continue driving when it may not be safe. And so when they're getting lost or confused, it can definitely be a serious problem. And so safety of the person and others is, of course, very important for all of us. So while it's a well-practiced skill, there are many ways, that driving can be unsafe, and many of these, like visual spatial ability, their ability to plan ahead, to react, to problem solve, to not get distracted. Also, once the anxiety, right, that can also fuel some of the behaviors that happen. And so it's really talking about then, how do we deal with this? How do we move to not driving? That's independence for all of us. And so taking the driving away really takes somebody's independence away. And so we really definitely want to talk about strategies that we can use to help the caregivers and the person, right? Not move away from driving if needed, if it's a safety hazard. Next slide. So you can ride along with the person, of course, discuss your concerns, talk about driving retirement. Definitely can work with the provider or the DMV and disabling the car. I've shared this before, but I do know one time a family did, I think, disable, I think it was they just did the battery, they unhooked the battery, but their person ended up calling to get the car towed so that the car could get fixed because the car wasn't working. So that was quite an experience, and also like a little bit, it was funny too. Like it was a chuckle for all of us. Okay. So next slide, please. And of course, we're very familiar with these stories that have happened across Hawaii. Next slide. And then the next slide. This old slide deck. So as many of us know, the Silver Alert was signed into law. And so we were very excited and proud about that. And for everybody who also got to be involved. So that's all of us taking our picture. It was a really a nice day to celebrate. Okay, and the next slide. Okay, Gina, you want to talk about this part?
Absolutely. Hello, folks. I'm Gina Plummer, the program manager here at the Alzheimer's Association, and I will be happy to share with you guys about the services and support that's offered here at the association. Next slide. Okay, so what we have here at the Alzheimer's Association, the first thing that we are very proud that we offer is our 24-hour hotline. And this hotline is for folks caring for someone with dementia, not just Alzheimer's, but any form of dementia. And this line is available, as it states, 24/7 and in 200 languages. So one of the questions that I get often is, will it be a local person that answers? So, although this is not a local number, and if you happen to not get someone at that time, definitely someone local will follow up by the next morning, or within a certain time frame. So at some point you will be able to speak to someone local. We offer the caregiver support groups. Right now we have 2 in person and 1 virtual, and very soon we will be starting up an early stage support group in conjunction with Catholic Charity. So we are very, very excited about that. Additionally, we have the caregiver training. All the trainings here at the association are absolutely free, and we offer a wide range of trainings from the 10 warning signs, understanding Alzheimer's and dementia, to our latest initiative, which is the Empowered Caregiver. And we are super, super excited about the Empowered Caregiver. This is an impact program, and it is definitely impactful. It takes the caregiver from start to finish. So the caregiver, let's say if there's a new caregiver, they come to us, they just don't know where to start, they don't know what to do, they overwhelmed, they just received a diagnosis, and they just trying to figure out where to start. So we take them from building a foundation for the caregiver, supporting their independence. Then we move over to communication, um, helping them identify dementia-related behaviors, and then it follows up with support services. Now, those services are not limited to the Alzheimer's Association. So if we have a constituent and it's something very specific that they need and we don't have it, but Catholic Charities have it or Project Donna have it, those are all community partners, and we will definitely reach out to those partners and link the constituent with the services that they need. And lastly is the care consultation. So I really enjoy the care consultations because it's an opportunity for the constituent to come in and sit down with us one-on-one and talk to us about their challenges, their fears, what are the resources they need. It's a very personable service. And then once we know, just what they're dealing with, we're able to connect them with all the different services. And this program just really lessens the stress that comes with caring for someone with dementia. So they can just focus on caring for their person, and they don't have to worry about going through all these different resources online, calling folks, leaving messages. That can be a very tedious task, and we take that off the caregiver's hands. So, it's very helpful. So those are, lastly, actually, our online tools and resources. So if anyone has had the opportunity to go through our website, I'm sure you've seen that it is a lot of resources, but please utilize them. Next slide. And then our walk. Everyone is familiar with our walk. It's our biggest initiative. It's, how we get the word out. And, we're really excited about it. So it is already set for 2025, which is November the 8th. So if you don't already have a walk team, please come over and join us. So we will love to have you guys. Next slide. Okay, lastly, this is how you can connect with us. This is the care and support team. So we have Nick Las Banos over on Hawaii Island, Cindy Fowler, who handles Molokai, Maui, and Kauai. And then you have myself, Gina Plummer, here on Oahu. We are an amazing team. So if you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. And as I'm sure everyone here knows Ivy Castellanos and LJ Duenas. So you can reach out to any of us, and yeah, we're always here to answer the call. So thank you. Thank you for that, Dr. Balaz. I hand it back over.
Is that the last slide already? Okay, well, thanks, Gina, and for sharing all of the resources for the association. I know sometimes the association is like a lot of the resources are for community family caregivers, but the resources are also there for professionals too, and can be accessed at any time, and they can be very helpful in clinical situations also when needed. So at this time, like I was saying earlier, I see questions coming in. Sarah, I saw your question. That was a great way to kick it off, but would really encourage if others can share kind of what they've gone through, if wandering has happened, and especially in your working environment and how you've handled that, what strategies or solutions you have found to be successful or unsuccessful. Thanks, Gina.
So I think, this is Lucas here, and P, really nice to see you. It's been a while. I've had the joy of working with Poki'i in the past, teaching the Savvy Caregiver program a number of times to folks in the community, and that was really, really awesome. Really excited to see all the awesome things Poki'i does. It's amazing. And So, I definitely folks jump in or put your experiences with wandering there in the chat that we will can discuss as we go along. And just to start it off, want to check in with our panel to see if folks have anything in their experience from their field to add or to ask about. So Sarah, with social work, anything you wanted to add or ask?
Yeah, the reason I asked this question is interesting because we have somebody in one of my exercise classes, and she definitely has I guess she has some brain changes going on to the extent that they took away her car keys because most recently, I guess she was not necessarily getting lost, but she was hitting things, hitting objects, getting her car banged up. But the point being is the family had told the the mom, don't worry, after you finish the exercise class, your Tai Chi class, we're going to pick you up, right? So one day we just assumed the Tai Chi class that the son was going to pick her up, but we couldn't find her. And then we sent out this huge search because you hear about this, people like you said, Pookie, if they're missing within 24 hours, something's going to happen. And like an hour later, she comes back to the YMCA. She had gone for a haircut down the street. So then, and she was very surprised. Everybody was worried and anxious, and to some extent, even the family was upset. So in her mind, she didn't see herself as wandering. So I was looking this up, and actually, they're similar, wandering and eloping, but it's elopement is more like you're leaving an area unnoticed and not supervised. You're eloping. So it could be mostly you'll see this in a care facility, whereas wandering, it's the person is putting themselves in harm's way, um, and they definitely lacks safety awareness, which is what you pointed out. So it's just something to think about because it goes back to, um, how can we sort of minimize, people, the risk of wandering, especially for people that have cognitive impairment. And, besides the interventions you mentioned, which are behavioral ones, some of the other things people use are wander guards and bells and whistles. You name it, we've got all those things. But I love what you said about oftentimes as providers here in the room, we're the person that says to you, I want to go home. I need to go home now. Open the door, I'm going home. And usually, if you just stop to ask the person, Well, tell me about home. What is waiting for you at home? So that kind of is the start of a nice segue into not just distracting, but you kind of get to understand what they were concerned about. So for those people, it may be that they were the caregiver for their grandchildren and they want to be home in time to make sure they have the snack for their grandchild or cook dinner. So that I'm going to end at that about my experience with wandering.
Thanks, Sarah. Poki'i, anything to add about that? Or I think there's a.
Oh, um, I loved what Sarah shared, and Lucas, it's good to see you again too. It has been way too long. I think in terms of like seeing a patient like in our work environment, uh, either if they want to go home or they are just maybe agitated, bored. Sometimes they also don't like it when we're talking about them and they just want to get up and then walk around. And so some of the things that I have done too, if they want to walk and they want to go, or we know that they're going to go and there's nothing to stop them, is I've just taken that appointment, I just made it a walking appointment. So we just walk and talk and walk with them. And sometimes it gets interrupted with, they want to sit on the bench, they want to look at the flowers, but you build that trust in that moment of time and they're feeling safer and secure. And I can get to all of my questions with the patient or their care person or team or whoever if somebody is with them. And it's also just a nice way to get out. So it doesn't always have to be at the computer in the office. We can go on walks. We can, sit in a car. I've done that before, just sat in a car because they felt better that way. Or sitting on the ground below them and looking up at them. So I'm not looking down at them, doing things like that. Also, some other things we've done in clinic is also play games, like talk to them while we're like playing something, or if they just have a fidget toy. So I think it doesn't always just have to be the norm of we have to do it here. It has to be the computer so I can get to my notes. Well, that's very important, of course, because none of us want to stay up very late charting, but we can change the environment to what is needed for them so that they can get what they need and we can get what we need. And so there's so many variations to do that. And I'm sure many of you have had experiences like that. So Lucas, I know you have, if you want to share, or if anybody else would love to share.
Thanks, Poki'i. And I think, what's running throughout your whole presentation here is this like really empathic effort to try to understand why someone might be wandering and to try to make sense of it and not see it as like a problem behavior as much as like an understandable response that someone might have to feeling confused, uncertain, vulnerable, scared, and that's what I would do if I felt that. I would try to find my way to a more familiar place. So um, yeah, I just appreciate that because often the family member is not coming from that point of view in the beginning, when they're learning about these illnesses. So that's super helpful. Um, I'm going to kind of jump back and forth between our panel and the chat. And thank you, Justin, who posted the Google Drive links to the presentation slides, and I'm definitely downloading them. And very helpful to pass on to families I'm working with for sure. Aaron asked, have you found that wandering to if there's a pattern to wandering for a particular person, for example, doesn't happen around 2 p.m., if they drop the kids off at 2 p.m. and that was kind of their thing, have you noticed kind of a pattern to wandering?
Oh, I was answering the question. They said, what have you
Oh,
noticed? And that's what I used to do when I was a
I'm
nursing home
sorry.
consultant. That's okay, because I used to be a nursing home consultant. So I would teach staff to like ask if they notice a pattern to the wandering. Like, for example, does it always happen between 2 and 3? Are they going to pick up the kids? That kind of stuff, and then reassuring them that way. So it just confirmed, I guess, because then the presenter also said almost the exact same thing. So I was just sharing an experience.
Well, Lucas, you're on mute. Thank you, Erin, for sharing though. That was awesome.
good sort of thing to be on the lookout for, I guess, is that pattern and what was kind of driving that pattern to begin with. Um, awesome. And then Capono asked, hello, Dr. Balaz, do you have an update on when the Silver Alert program will be starting?
Hey, Kapona, how are you? I will push that question to Gina, who can give you the updates, especially on anything that's happening this ledge season. So Gina, you want to take that one?
So actually, unfortunately, we do not have an exact date, but I was told that it's looking possibly like June. So hopefully, fingers crossed. The date is constantly being pushed back. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have anything that's concrete yet.
Georgina, this is Sarah. Is it relative to the staffing, like having funding to actually support staff through the police department and then to train the police department to implement similarly this, just like the Amber Alert? Because I know the law was passed, but and I agree with Capono, but I don't know what the barriers are. If it's more money kind of a thing, you know, and Poki'i's smiling. It's money.
So that's actually part of it because part of that bill is law enforcement training. So that's part of it, but that's on the second half. So the way that it was articulated to me is that they're trying to fine tune the infrastructure as to the way that the alerts will go out. Um, I assumed it can just happen the same way the Amber Alerts go out, but it wasn't even a concrete answer. It was just really blamed on infrastructure and them trying to figure out, the system of, how the messages will go out. But the training is the second half of it for law enforcement.
Yeah. We still have people that um are have wandered and we still haven't found those people. So that's I guess why. Most
Yeah.
recently, I think even a couple of weeks ago. So it's troubling. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I wish we had a better answer, something more concrete. But we're asking on a regular, where do we stand? Can we put a date on it? Can deadlines be put on this? And I'm not well versed in the politics of how all of that happened, or why it's happening that way. But yeah, that is just what we're told.
All right, thanks, folks, for the updates, and we'll cross our fingers that that happens uh, coming up in June, as is hoped for. Um, and okay, Renata asked, have lab studies been done on those who wander to determine if their cortisol levels are elevated and actually in fight or flight mode, or adrenaline, or other kinds of uh, biomarkers? Anyone? Poki'i, any heard of that, or any kind of like application of that to wandering before?
Now that Rita Bell, did you want to jump in? Lucas, I miss working together with you because I was actually going to give that question to you. And so it reminds me of when we would ping pong off each other. But anyway, I'll let Rita Bell answer. I think she's under her mic.
As geriatricians, we do not order lab tests for somebody who went wandering. We look at more non-pharmacological opportunities and what we can do to address their behavior, or as you said, to figure out why they are wandering. And this happened to me hit very close to home when my parents were visiting from India for 6 months in 2022. My mother wandered off, and I got a text from my neighbor to say, Rita Bell, your mother is lying in my driveway. Now, what did the neighbor think? The neighbor thought apparently that we had some family fight, and my mother had just walked out and gone next door to chill off. And why did my mother wander? So what was her reasoning to just walk out of the house? So my mother forgot that where we were going and what we had told her, and she was not alone in the house. My spouse was there as well. But when my mom woke up from her sleep, she thought everyone has gone to church and they left me behind. So she changed her pants. She put a formal Sunday pant. I do not know why she took a towel. She had a Bible in her hand and she walked out. So that was in her mind. Everybody's gone to church and they left me behind. So coming back to doing lab tests and all, that is not something we consider for as geriatricians that we order for people who wander. We I think we spend more time taking a good history and doing that little detective work, as you mentioned in your presentation, Poki'i. And I want to give a big shout out to Poki'i for the PBS town hall. She did a fantastic job sharing about her parents, about the pool in the backyard, and all the love. Thank you, Poki'i.
Thank you, Rita Bell. I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing. It's good to see you again, too.
I think Rita Bell kind of raises an important thing, which is, yeah, a lot of these behaviors are not, yeah, we're trying to sort of move away from chemical kind of addressing them in sort of chemical ways or and really focusing on the understanding of why and the source of that discomfort and that confusion and addressing it with the environment, with our approach, with understanding what they feel like they need. But good question, sort of what's going on in their bodies. Um, Reese, anything you want to add from a pharmacy perspective? Speaking of the chemistry.
Yeah, so I guess first a more personal story. So one of our family friends, they found the Apple tag useful. They put it on their father as kind of like a backup if he did get out of the house and wander around in public. So they found that useful, and again, there's like a strap or something that you can attach to them, the tag to. So it kind of looks like a watch, and they found that beneficial. Um, and then um, more about medications. My question would be, um, first line is non-pharmacologic, but where, when would be the tipping point where you would want to consider medications? Would it be more if it's related to agitation or some other reasons that are leading to wandering for the patient?
When I have considered medications in the past, I had to start it for a person in a care home who was always leaving the care home. They're wandering off because they want to go home. So the care home operator told me, Dr. Fernandez, I tried everything you said. She said, that's it. I because it came to the point that the patient would have lost that foster home or care home. This was years ago, and when we had tried all different suggestions and ideas and everything, then it came to a point that we had to start. And I forgot whether we started Seroquel or Risperidone, but we had to start a low dose antipsychotic, especially at the time this was occurring, because then we were afraid for the patient's safety for jumping the fence and jumping the doors and trying to get out. They could be lost. And yeah, we did get the safe return or 24/7 wandering program from the Alzheimer's Association. And I do want to give a shout out to the Alzheimer's Association. Big mahalo. There are many, many of my patients, Kukukali Valley patients, that got the free, they were given the program free through your scholarships from the Hawaii Community Foundation. So thank you for your generosity.
I second that. So many awesome resources that you folks offer for the community. Thank you, Rita Bell, for responding to that. Yeah, good question, Reese. Susie, anything from the physical therapy world related to this?
Um, I- what I'd like to drive home from the presentation is you really do have to instruct the caregivers to really do detective work. So when we're working with, caregivers, or I'm working with a patient who likes to wander, who can't attend to like the physical therapy tasks that I need to do, I know like what that patient did for an occupation, what their hobbies are. I'm aware of like also like when they were teenagers, because and what music is that they'll remember, because I think music really does have a kind of a triggering effect to just help redirect as well. Um so and also the caregivers, as well as like healthcare providers, you have to have like kind of a list. Okay, like here's the things that I think would distract that person, and you just have to go down the list, and it might not always work either, and that's what it's fun. It's actually kind of fun detective work, and when it finally works, you're like, yeah, I did it. We connected, we found that missing link. So, because it can be frustrating, it's like we'll find something that they're interested in. And if it doesn't work, it's just like deflating, it's like, well, I'm just going to give up. A really good example is on a personal note, we brought my in-laws over here for a couple of months last year. My father-in-law has Lewy body dementia. We put him into Maluhia Adult Day Health Center. And, I know my father-in-law. I I go into the center, and I know all the staff at the center, and I'm like, okay, this is how you're going to distract him, because he was a big wanderer. And it didn't work. Like that first day I was called in, and but but me, my mother-in-law, and the amazing staff at Maluhia Day Health Center, we worked together to figure out a solution, to figure out like, okay, this here, okay, if this doesn't work, try this. If this doesn't work, try this. And in the end, he was able to stay at the center to give, my mother-in-law and us a break. So don't get frustrated, be a detective. And when you figure out what really works, with that your loved one or that patient, it really is just like it's a very satisfying feeling that you finally connected. You connected those dots.
I love that, Susie. Lucas, may I add on? I don't know if you were gonna, all right. So I wanted to add, because I loved what you just shared, and to add on to that, sometimes distractions come in forms that may not be, I guess, quote unquote, normal to us. So for instance, when I was doing support groups, I had one of the caregivers share that his mother liked to change light bulbs, and it was very frustrating to him because he felt like this is such a waste of time, who mom was and things. And so definitely had a discussion about how that, for her though, it made her feel like she had purpose,
Yeah.
like Luke, going back to our savvy days, had purpose, and that she felt useful, and so in the end, after some time, he realized that there was something to this. So he ended up buying her all different types of light bulbs, and she would spend like an hour to 2 hours changing light bulbs all around the house, and she was happy and she loved it. And so it became a thing to do every day. And so sometimes, just to Susie's point, when we're talking about distractions, it might not always be like gardening or reading a book or doing a scrapbook. It might be something that you just stumble upon, and it interests them, and it makes them feel happy and important and with a purpose again, and useful. So just to keep an eye out. If you see them doing something, they're gravitating towards something, it's not maybe the norm, let's just try it out.
Mhm.
Also, just to you too, I'm gonna say, my father, when he went into end stages, and before that, one thing we didn't think about at first was the PT and OT continuing to come. And it's been a blessing to continue. And I share that with my families to let them know that you can still have, them come. And it's every year, every few times PT and OT come, reassess my father. We go through all the range of motions, or as they say to me, functional, PT or OT, and we go through it so that all of us caregivers know the range of motions to do to keep him moving and so contractors don't set in. And I just love it. And speech comes too. And so we have this ongoing rotation for them to come every so often to reassess us, to reassess him, and that, we can keep him mobile and having some good quality of care. So thank you also.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's actually it's nice to hear that, because one of my biggest pet peeves is we will get a referral, or we'll have a we'll make a recommendation for a PT or OT, and the family members or the doctor or nurse will say, well, they have Alzheimer's, so they're not going to remember anything. And it's like, no, no, no. That is, my job, my job as a physical therapist, the way I look at it when I'm working with Alzheimer's, is I'm actually their home exercise program. So yes, a 30-year-old orthopedic patient, one time a week, that's their job to learn the exercises, do their exercises on their own. But when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia, my job is to make sure that I am their home exercise program, and I am actually making sure that the caregivers and or the nursing staff, that they can then take what I've done with them during that time and to follow through. Now, they're not always going to follow through, but that's okay. It's like at least I was able to see them for 4 to 8 weeks, 2 times a week, and help build that strength and those balance reactions. And also don't forget too, as therapists, we get the wonderful privilege of working with patients for 45 minutes to an hour. So I can figure out all kinds of activities and what's going to distract them, so they don't wander. And then I can go back and provide that education to the staff or to a caregiver. So thank you. Thank you for mentioning the importance of PT and OT and speech.
Thank you, Susie and Poki'i. Super, super helpful, and definitely found it super helpful with my clients, caregivers, just to get specific and have that long list of things and just try, and really that helps folks keep going. Um, so I'm just looking at the time. We have about 1 minute left, and I'm sure some of us have to run for Kupuna, waiting for an appointment. John just posted the evaluation link. So if you are applying for CEs, please go ahead and fill that out. Just want to say
Lucas,
a
I have one
huge
more comment to make
yes.
from
Okay.
what both Poki'i and Susie were saying is to play upon that topic of being a detective. I just wanted to add that know that what works one day may not work the next day. That's what they mean by being a detective. But if you can be present, if you can be mindful of being present with your client in the here and now, you pretty much, if you watch and listen to them, you figure out what the need is, the unmet need is. Thanks, Lucas.
Thanks, Sarah. Very, very good reminder. Every day can be very different. And I also found it useful to reassure folks that, wandering is not going to last forever. Because at every phase there's things that come and go. So huge mahalo to Poki'i. Really excited when I saw that you were on the schedule, and really awesome to see you and hear you. Have you spend time with us, and thank you so much for this time, and also for all the advocacy you're doing over there in Washington, D.C., being such an awesome advocate for older adults and Native Hawaiian communities and Hawaii. And so really appreciate all you do. Thank you for the panel, for being here, and sharing your expertise, and for everyone who joined us today for participating. So mahalo everybody and have a wonderful month. Hope to see you next time.